Because like last time, 25 of you were running after me in the hallway, so they will answer the questions, inshallah. But before we begin, I got two people to honor today. Abdul Majid. Where's Abdul Majid? Small token of appreciation for being quiet and peaceful and nice. And the sister here. Yeah. What's your name again? Sana? Sana. Okay, thank you. Jazakallah. You're quiet and peaceful and kind. Okay. Okay, so who has a question? But make sure that your question is good, it's beneficial. Don't talk about jinn. Don't talk about people falling off the plane and dying and being crushed by a tempest. Come on. Okay, who has a good question? Okay, you sister. Yes. Yeah. Wallahi, say wallahi. Do you have a question? Yes? Yes? Go if you have a question. The sisters, it's a good question actually. The sister is asking, can you make salah without wudu? Yes and no. There are two types of salah. If we're talking about namaz, like dhuhr and asr, sunnah, istikhara, you have to have wudu. Otherwise your salah is not acceptable. But there are some other salawat that do not require wudu. Like if you say salah for the Prophet ﷺ, if you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, right? Alayhi salatu wassalam. Or if you make dua, because dua is a form of salah, right? In English, you use prayer for both. Like you pray dhuhr, you call it prayer. If you made dua, Ya Allah, make me successful, give me money, it's called prayer in English, salah, right? And linguistically in Arabic, the word salah means a prayer, to ask Allah for something, to connect, because salah basically means salah or connection with Allah. So for this second type of salah, you don't need wudu, but for the regular salawat and namaz, you need wudu. Good question. Who else? Okay, the guy with the glasses.
Are you allowed to pray? Close your eyes while you're doing the
Okay, another good question. You're next. Yes, guy in the middle. But the brother is asking, can I pray with my eyes closed? Technically, you should keep your eyes open and look at the place where you make sajda. So if I make sajda here, this is where I'm going to keep my eyes. Some people, when they pray, they just travel. They keep looking at the wall and all these things. And this is not the right thing to do. However, if you pray in a place where you have a lot of distractions, like you're praying in a place, you're visiting your friend, and they have pictures on the wall. Or in some places they have crazy carpets. They have rabbits and birds and like all the characters in Walt Disney cartoons. You see them there? And Pixar animations. You see them on the floor. And as soon as you start to pray, you see them running after each other and flying, and you can't focus. So if this is the case, if there are a lot of distractions in front of you, keeping your eyes closed will help you maintain khushu'. So it's acceptable in this way. Sometimes when we pray Taraweeh and we read a lot of Quran, to be able to focus and remember the ayat, sometimes, most of the imams I would say, they close their eyes to be able to focus on what they recite in Salah, because they recite long portions in the Salah. So the summary is, you keep your eyes open unless there are a lot of distractions, you need to close your eyes, then you can close them to maintain khushu' and focus in the Salah. Jazakallah. We'll get this brother, then we'll move to the sisters. This guy.
Why is it allowed to so why is it bad to
Okay, it's a good question. Why is it haram for people to pass in front of you in salah? Well, we know that from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the most important thing when you are in communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to stay focused and to have this khushu' or connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be focused in the salah and that you're not distracted. Of course, when people pass in front of you, you would be distracted, right? So this is why the scholars say for example, I'm standing here, and this is where I make sajda, and this is the next line. If someone wants to pass, they can pass in that area or from behind you. But minimum, this is your space, from here till here. No one should pass here, because there is another line. They know that this is your space. They can pass right there, knowing that you're keeping your eyes here, right? As we said a minute ago. So when you keep your eyes here, when they pass over there or behind you, you're not distracted. But it is better anyway to pass behind the people and not in front of them, even over there. And also when you pray, you make it easy for people not to distract your attention. Because some people, especially at Jum'ah, I see them all the time. When they pray the sunnah, the only spot in the masjid they choose for praying the sunnah is over there, in front of the door. And they know that every single one in the room will go there, will pass there. Why do you make it difficult for yourself and for them? You can just pray behind a wall or a pillar or go somewhere close to the wall, and you make it easy for everyone. So the whole point about people passing behind you or away from you is to keep you focused in the salah, to maintain the khushu'. We'll give the sister with the hijab here.
There's a fact. If you do sajda with your eyes open, with your eyes closed, the magnetic thing, it makes your eyesight weaker. That's why I open my eyes and do my sajda.
This is good. I'm not sure about the scientific wisdom behind it. أنا كنت أعرف مش عارف. But yeah, we can look more into it from a scientific point of view. Barakallah fiik. Sister over here? Yes.
Is it allowed to marry like a man that's younger than you, or does it have the man to be older?
That's a good question. It's a good question.
Laughing. I don't know why you guys are laughing.
Okay. So the sister is asking, is it okay for a sister to marry someone who is younger? We know that from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that he got married to Khadija radiallahu anha, and she was way older than him, right? But both of them were mature. Because sometimes, this is the fact, maybe there's someone who is 50 years old and they're not mature. Maybe there's someone who's 20 and they are very mature, right? So the age doesn't really matter. As long as the persons are mature mentally and physically, and they're able to start a family, it's acceptable Islamically. Generally it is acceptable. It is recommended, however, for the two to be of about the same age. Maybe if there is 1 or 2 or 3 years of a difference. By culture, it's acceptable, I believe. But again, it's different from one person to another. Some people, they prefer, like sisters, they prefer someone who's a bit older, 2 years older. But again, it's different from one culture to another. It's up to the person and their family and their culture. But Islamically, as long as both are mature, physically, emotionally, mentally, and they're able to maintain a family and raise kids, why not? Barakallah fiik. The sisters here? Yeah. There are always flights later the same day or tomorrow or after 2 weeks. You know. Because people miss lights all the time. People miss lights all the time. But again, what I meant, if something bad happens to you, you shouldn't be mad. And you shouldn't question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it might turn out to be something good for you that that can happen. All you need to do is just wait and see. You know? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said last time, Allah sees the whole picture. We only see a small portion of it. We never know. Jazakallah. We get one brother and move back here. Sulaiman. Last one for now. Ask the second tomorrow. Soranyo.
Are you allowed to wear like a watch or something when you're praying?
You wear what?
Wear a watch or something.
A watch. Well, wearing a watch will not distract your attention in the salah. So this is why wearing a watch or a ring or earrings, it's not a distraction. But holding a cell phone is a distraction, right? Yes. Okay, this brother in the back.
Why is the Quran recited out loud during Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha Salah? Why not Dhuhr and Asr?
Well, that's an excellent question. We'll give you a prize next time. Okay. Number one, when you come across questions like this, the number one reason is because the Prophet ﷺ did it this way. Right? So this by itself is enough reason for us to do it. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." Pray the same way you saw me praying. And he prayed this way. Number two, we know that at the end of the Meccan period, when the Sahaba used to pray and recite Quran, they would come and they would attack them, right? So what happened basically, the people of Mecca, they used to wake up after sunrise. That was the norm, especially for the rich and the elite. They wouldn't wake up in the morning. They wake up late that day. Same thing, they go to bed early. Maghrib time, they go to sleep. That was the norm at the time. So what happens when they are active? They're running around in the streets of Mecca during the day, Dhuhr and Asr, the Salah was silent. Maghrib time, when they were asleep, Isha time, when they were dead sleep, Fajr, before they woke up, the Salah was loud because there were not many people, there was not a lot of traffic in the streets, so the harm would be very minimal. So this is the way the Prophet ﷺ did it, and this is what the scholars say. There's another reason that I think is good, is that now imagine if I'm the Imam here, and I recite for Fajr, and I recite in Maghrib, and I recite in Isha, and sometimes there are new Muslims who are praying behind me. Sometimes people who don't understand Arabic, you know, they don't speak Arabic, they don't know what I'm reciting in the Salah. Like the ayat, I'm reading from Baqarah, Yasin, another surah. People don't know what I'm saying in the Salah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them the chance in Dhuhr and Asr to read from the surahs they know. So they basically understand what they themselves are saying. So they get this chance in Dhuhr and Asr, but they don't have this opportunity in Fajr, Maghrib and Isha, Allah. But it's an excellent question. Sister here.
Can you pray with your shoes on?
Well, the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, the question, can you pray with your shoes on? The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, I would say, they prayed most of the time with their shoes on. The masjid of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina basically was not fancy like this, with a beautiful minbar and fancy carpets and chandeliers, nothing of that sort. So they basically had sand and pebbles, so this is how they prayed. So they basically got inside with their shoes, or when they were traveling, they would pray with their shoes on. There is an authentic hadith in Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ was praying, and everyone was praying behind him. And the Sahaba loved the Prophet ﷺ so much that they always copied him. So they were standing in Salah behind him, all in their shoes. And the Prophet ﷺ took off their shoes in the Salah. He put them to the side, and every single one of them behind him did the same thing. So after Salah, the Prophet ﷺ told them, okay, why did you take your shoes off? They said, we saw you taking your shoes off, so we did the same thing. And the Prophet ﷺ, said, I took them off because Jibreel alayhi salam told me in salah there was a najasa in my shoe, like below my shoe. There was something impure under my shoe, so I took it off. So they basically didn't have to, right? So if you're wearing shoes, you're playing soccer or in the gym and it is about time to make salah, you can just wipe over your shoes and you just pray. But make sure that your shoes are clean from the bottom. And the easiest way is just rub them against the floor or the sand. I think it's convenient for a lot of people. I know in our culture, especially in the Arab culture, it's disrespectful to pray with your shoes on. But if the Prophet ﷺ did it, there's nothing shameful about it, right? If you take it off, you think it's better, alhamdulillah, there's nothing wrong. Both are acceptable Islamically. All I'm saying is the Prophet ﷺ did it, so you shouldn't be ashamed to do it, if you want to. We'll take one last question and let you go. We'll take Aboudi. Abdullah? Muhammad. Sorry, I always confuse you with your brother. You look the same. Sorry.
What was your question?
طيب قول لحد ثاني وبعدين أنا.
Okay. He's still thinking, still thinking. We'll take the sister here and we'll go back to Muhammad.
So you know how you said like it's not mandatory for women to pray in the masjid? Like why? Is that better?
Okay. If they pray in the masjid, they will get the reward, alhamdulillah. If they pray at home, they will get the reward. What is the difference? We know that maybe they have kids. And if they go to the masjid and leave the kids behind, it's going to be difficult for the kids, right? So they are given the option either to pray in the masjid or pray at home. And either way, they will get the full reward. Same way. For example, if the man gets a chance to fast the whole month of Ramadan, and many sisters miss some days of the month of Ramadan because of a certain reason, some days of the month, they skip some days. So they end up missing a few days, 5 days, 7, more or less. When they make up these 3 or 5 or 7 days after Ramadan, they will get the exact same reward as if they fasted in Ramadan. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fair and He is generous. So He's giving the wife the same reward that He would give her husband. Allah can, right? Muhammad.
طيب. So if Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said about a few of the prophets, why didn't he say all of them? Yani, why didn't he mention all of them?
Yeah, as we mentioned last time, the Quran mentions only 24 prophets plus Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the total is 25 because, as I mentioned, the number of prophets was 124,000. Now imagine if all these prophets are mentioned and their stories are mentioned in the Quran. You need a truck to carry the Quran with, right? Because 124,000 stories in one book. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us samples of the prophets, and in their times there were certain problems. So one was dealing with financial corruption, one was dealing with social corruption, one was dealing with emotional corruption, right? And so on and so forth. So each one of them had to deal with a certain issue. Yusuf alayhi salam's siblings rivalry. So each one of them was dealing with a certain issue, but between them, they were dealing with all the problems that we're facing today. Right? So there was no need to mention all of them. Jazakumullah khairan. We'll see you tomorrow. And I'll answer the rest of the questions tomorrow so you don't have to run after me and 10 people are talking at the same time, you know. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.